Hello and welcome to my budget deck channel where I try to make decks playable and cheap. And today I had a look at the new deck, which is Magikey. But first things first, this deck is in comparison to what it can do, not as great as it could be because of two different reasons. First reason is quite obvious. The deck does not have its whole support out yet, so we are still lacking some cards. So this deck will become better in the future with an addition of certain extra deck monsters, certain main deck monsters, and so on. But also this deck is a budget version, so it lacks a lot more potential than, for example, any other kind of budget decks that I've done so far, because this is one of those decks that only works pretty well if you don't really do what the deck actually wants to do, but you go into Auroradon, Halq combos and end on crazy boards like 3-4 disruptions and stuff. But that is obviously neither cheap nor it is actually how the deck is meant to be played. So I tried to find a way how to make this deck a lot cheaper than it would be the other way around, while still maintaining what this deck actually is meant to do. Sadly, what this deck is actually meant to do is terrible. I don't know what the real playmaker of this deck is meant to be. It's a bit between like stalling your opponent a little bit with stuff like the counter trap and one of your ritual monsters, then nuking your opponent's boards once you have enough different attribute monsters in your graveyard. I don't know. It felt very clunky to play. It's it's not very competitive, I would say. It's fun for some people. Maybe it's a ritual deck, it's a ritual fusion deck if you're interested in that. If you just like the whole style of looking a bit like Kingdom Hearts and whatnot, and you just want to be playing this deck, then this works against friends in the gold ladder. It's fine to play, but yeah, I wouldn't invest too much in it if you don't already have the cards, because yeah, there's a lot of better budget decks, and a lot better budget decks if I'm saying so myself. Starting off with one Angel Trumpeter, it's a plant tuner monster, which can help you go into level 8, which sadly there's not really any good one that is not super rare or ultra rare. So the only, I feel like, decent super rare that I wanted to put into this deck was Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend. It's good if you want to wipe your opponent's board, it can sometimes help you. Any other super rare level 8 is mainly archetypal and whatnot. There's not that many good ones. The good ones basically happen in the ultra rare section, so if you have any, feel free to play them. I felt like this was the best budget choice to play. And another one is Avenging Knight Parshav. If you ever need to make yeah, I don't know, you basically don't want to do this unless you do piercing battle damage to your opponent to finish the game. That can help if they have a 0 attack point defense monster. I don't know. That this card never came up in testing whatsoever, but your extra deck doesn't really need that many cards, so I feel like including this card, why not? Next up, one Magnet Avram, basically, so you have a light monster, which you have a few other ones as well, so you could technically play like a wind one or a water one if you wanted to. Megalo Smasher comes to mind. It's fine if your opponent plays like Halqy Fibrax and stuff. You might want to have a water monster in your deck, but light came up a lot more, and you actually have a better way of sending this to the graveyard than relying on getting your Manju. So I thought Avram might be a bit better. Triple Magikey normal monster, because you do need it for certain, I don't want to call them combos, but it does start certain things, so it's okay. One Gunkan Suship Shari, which fire monster, and you could go into the Gunkan Suship rank 4 monster and net one draw and possibly, I don't know, destroy a card in your opponent's field if you do battle damage. So cleaning up a little bit, I guess. I don't know. It works sometimes, so I feel like the inclusion of it is fine because you need the normal monsters. One Ash Blossom because people already have one from the whole packs that you get at the start, so I feel like I include this in every kind of budget deck. This card is usually like a 3-off. If you want to take out stuff like Forbidden Chalice, you could run 3 Ash Blossom if you like. Triple Manju of the 10,000 Hands. It's an okay card. It's mainly in here to search you to ritual spells, which are part of the more expensive part of your deck, sadly. Advanced Ritual Art is nice if you have a ritual monster in hand, but want to, yeah, use stuff from your deck. Mainly works with the high level Magikey ritual monster. And this card is good if you don't have a ritual monster in hand, so you can summon out one from your deck, but you have to have a normal monster in hand, sadly, so it's not as great because you only run 6. You can search them on certain different ways, but mainly your field spell would achieve that. But even then, it feels a bit iffy. But yeah, that was a good normal summon for the deck. It works. Not the best option, but it does what it's meant to do. 2-Planet Pathfinder, sadly, I do not want to include this card in this deck whatsoever, because you technically want to use your normal summon on a lot of different things, but if you don't run this card at that ratio, you will brick even more than you already do, which is so upsetting. You could swap this card off the Terraforming if you have to. If you have one, then that is a lot better, but it's another ultra rare, and for this deck it's really not worth running any kind of ultra rares besides maybe its own one that I have in the extra deck, but even that only sometimes comes up. So Planet Pathfinder was fine because you can start certain things with having just the field spell. A lot of the time this works better in conjunction with the Unexpected Die, because you then already have a normal monster on board, and that works. Maybe baits out an Ash Blossom by your opponent, possibly. It's playable, but it's not great. The low-level Magikey Ritual monster searches your Magikey card, which is nice. Mainly you will be able to search your counter trap, which isn't great either, because it only works on your opponent's spell and trap card activation, not even the usual kind of every kind of activation, or even on monster summon or whatnot. Nope, that it is not. It's okay. It kind of also has the effect of changing your opponent's monster's attributes till the end of the turn, which can come in handy, but isn't as cool as it sounds like. If you want to play a plunder control kind of version with it, I don't know where this comes in more handy. I know the effects of the ritual monster and the fusion monster kind of work around this, but yeah, it's not that great. This is one of the playmakers of your deck. I don't really want to call it that, but it is a negate most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time. And it also kind of, well, it doesn't float, but you get stuff back to your hand. And yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It does what it's meant to do. It can achieve somewhat of an okay attack value. You can disrupt your opponent a little bit. It's not that easy to summon, actually, so I don't know. I don't have many good things to say about this deck, but this card is probably one of the better cards in the deck so far. Unexpected Die, a good card to go into rank 4s, for example, a good card to get a normal monster on your field, plus this card you do not have to craft because you get this in the tutorial, so this is completely fine. I run 3 Pot of Prosperity because of the fact that you want to not break, and most of your extra deck is kind of irrelevant, so I would really recommend playing this card, even though you have your damage, but you don't really OTK anyway with this build, and it helps you find the card that you need as a piece of the puzzle. I think it's a nice card, but yeah, obviously there's different kind of options. Triple Magikey Mafti, you could technically play 2. A lot of people would play 2 in different kind of variants. I felt like I do need this card in my hand quite a bit, so 3 felt a bit better. It helps you fusion summoning, helps you ritual summoning. Sadly does not count as a ritual spell, so you can't add it with Manju. Otherwise I would have cut this card down to 2 in a heartbeat, but it is very important to your deck, actually, and sometimes in a grind game, which you might get into with this variant, you run out of them in your deck, so maybe 3 is actually better. Magikey World, it's one of the playmakers of your deck. Searches your Magikey monster and also can search your fusion / ritual spell, but you have to put 1 card back in under your deck, which can be okay to get stuff like Planet Pathfinder out of your hand, because this deck also runs a lot of cards that you will not be able to use, so it doesn't actually hurt you that much that you have to put 1 card back. It's fine. It's not great, but it's okay. Yeah, I would definitely run it at 3, but you know, for this deck it's a playmaker, but you know what I'm saying. Advanced Ritual Art, a card that works really good in this deck because you run normal monsters and you can even send multiple. So if you have Advanced Ritual Art and the level 8, you can even send 2 different attributes to your graveyard, which is great. 1 High Ritual Art, also a card I think that was new in the pack. I wasn't sure if that was already in or if that was actually new, but you do want to run this card at 1, just for the fact that you can summon 1 card out of your extra deck, out of your deck, and technically you could use it if you have 2 normal monsters in your hand, then summon out level 8 from the deck, It will not happen too much, but it's possible. This card is just a cheap card to go first or go second. It's nice, but any other hand trap, infinite impermanence, maxi, whatnots, Nibiru even is a lot better in this card, and yeah, that's the one card that you probably would take out if you could. Same goes for Torrential Tribute. Going first, this card can be turn ender for your opponent, which gives you more time to actually get into the game, which can be quite important. So I like learning this card at 3. But yeah, again, if you have any good hand traps, any good cards that work during both turns, then put them in for this. One Magikey Duo, it helps you in the grind game. It's not a terrible card. It's also not really a good card. Run it at will. If you feel like it's clunky in the deck, then take it out, put something else in. But I kind of ran out of ideas what this deck could still need to do anything more, and you can actually surprise your opponent sometimes with maybe ritual summoning during their turn. Not too many times though, but it helps you recycle certain cards as well. If they destroy your level 8 ritual monster, but you still haven't lost the game, then you can get it back with this card. It's okay. Not great, but it's not terrible. We have to run a Drytron card in here because this card's counter trap is actually generic and, in my opinion, a bit better than the other one, but that's just because I feel like monsters are still higher value than most spell trap cards. But that obviously depends on your matchup. This card too, because it's not searchable, but you don't really want to run it at 3 because it can clog up your hand. You try to go into ritual monsters more than into your fusion, so I felt like this is a good card, but you don't have to run it. It kind of annoys your opponent a bit, so that's nice. Yeah, that's what you're trying to do basically. That's this one big moment for your deck if it can actually use Drytron Meteor Shower. Magicking Beast, the lower level fusion monster, it's nice because it helps you going into stuff like your Red Dragon Archfiend, for example, because it's a tuner. It adds your Mafti back from your graveyard to your hand, which can be nice. And also, it has an effect where you can target one attack position monster your opponent controls with the same attribute as a normal monster or Magikey monster in your graveyard, and then changes to defense position, and it loses 1,000. Defense also banishes cards that it destroys by battle. Sadly, not any monster that destroys a monster by battle, but just this card, which makes it a bit worse, but sometimes comes in handy, this effect. So yeah, I ran it at 3 just because grind game possibly, and also there's not much else to run the extra deck. You can easily cut 1 or 2 of this card as well. You can run the ultra rare, but you don't have to. It is a good card in the deck, and with your low level one, it's quite easy to actually go into it if you still have a normal monster chilling around somewhere, which you most of the time might have. Sounds weird, but that is how it is. The card is quite okay because you can actually target one normal monster again with in your graveyard. You target it in your graveyard for some reason. You don't banish it, you don't do anything with it, it's just about the attribute, and then destroying monsters on your opponent's side of the field with that attribute. So the card is good against a deck that runs the same kind of attribute. So most archetypal decks will be having a problem with this card from time to time. Or if during your turn, since this is not a quick effect, you use Magikey unlocking, then you can also utilize this card's effect. But it didn't happen a lot, and with not a lot, I meant not once. Yeah, for the extra deck, Evil Swarm Nightmare is an okay card because your Magikey monsters are dark, so you could go into Nightmare sometimes, can annoy your opponent from time to time, but it's, yeah, it is what it is. Other cards, just because they're cheap, obviously you can run any rank 4 that's actually good. Exiton Knight comes to mind. Obviously, the Zeus kind of engine is a good card. Well, not engine, but Zeus in general is a good card for a deck that can easily make any rank 4s. And yeah, other cards would just be situational. This card, for example, if you can't beat over a monster with 3,000 attack, which can happen, so it might be that you have to run this card. This card just gets rid of a monster that you can't otherwise get rid of for your turn if you need to finish the game, possibly. One card that I would definitely craft for this deck is Baguska, as sad as it sounds, but sometimes stalling 2 turns with Baguska is actually what you need to do. And then even then, you still struggle afterwards. So yeah, I'd like it, but you know, Susha, because you can actually utilize the draw effect, and sometimes you can do battle damage and then pop a card of your opponent's like continuous spell trap card that your opponent really needs. So this can come in handy. Yeah, it's as good as any of the other ones. Overall, this is basically what the deck does. The deck is playable. It's actually, I would say, quite competitive. Not this version, hear me out. The version, if you actually like this deck and want to at one point put some more ultra rares and super rares into this deck, the real competitive version with Halq Fibrax and Auroradon is actually quite competent. It's not amazing, but you can definitely play it up to like a high rank in Platinum. So it's not too bad investing in this deck, but yeah, if you want to play a good version, it's a lot better than this one. Like the distance between the good version and the bad version of this one is a lot higher than for certain other decks when you compare budget decks to their main kind of things. It's not just hand traps that I'm missing here, it's like a whole lot of extra like shenanigans that is also not in this. Whether for other decks it's more of it could be better because hand traps and stuff are good, but so I hope you enjoyed this deck profile. You can see I'm not too overwhelmed with this deck, but I still wanted to make a video on it because I haven't seen much about this deck yet on Master Duel, and I felt like it was an okay budget deck. It's not too expensive. It's somewhat fun. Do with this as you would like. Hope you enjoyed.